exploration of cannabis solutions to address our biggest health concerns like sleep, pain, stress, and also sex. There's so much overwhelming information out there, and we decided that we needed to come together and share stories by creating My Jane, My Story. This is a place to talk about real life experiences so we can be better and do better by helping one another. Every journey is unique, every path is special, and we're extremely grateful to have our guest here to share with all of us. This is a non-judgmental space where every question is necessary to learn and shift our perspective on this plant. We're sharing stories from experts and everyday My Jane community members. Our guests are making major differences in their lives and the lives of those around them by including cannabis as a wellness option or recreation as part of their daily routine and lifestyle. And today we have someone who's making a real difference in lives of people and businesses. Perhaps not the same way you imagine, but a real difference. We are honored to welcome Kristen Yoder, professional BS detector. Yes, you've heard it right. Who was featured in Vanity Fair, Forbes, USA Today, and named one of Marijuana Venture Magazine's 40 under 40 rising stars of the cannabis industry. She is a 15-year-old veteran, industry veteran, although she still looks young, fresh out of college. Kristen is a strategic advisor and radio and podcast personality who managed successfully businesses in every sector of the cannabis industry. Get ready to get the truth and nothing more than the raw truth about the cannabis industry. Kristen, welcome. We're so happy to have you with us today.
Wow, that was quite the intro. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Kristen, at the time where people try to wear CEO or president as titles in their resume, you named yourself outright bullshit detector. This is a little title that really got me at hello. And when I saw you the other day at an event, I just fell in love, and I knew that we had to have you on our podcast, and we needed to interview you. So welcome to My Jane, My Story. And let's begin a little bit about your career, because if you've been in all these top magazines mentioned earlier as a rising star of the cannabis industry, what did you do, and how did that happen?
You know, actually, it's interesting how that happened because I got to MC the Battle of the Terpene Alchemists, which was these different terpene companies, and they were mixing mixed drinks together, but using terpenes because terpenes are flavors. So while I was up there, I actually mentioned this one time when I overdosed on a terpene-infused edible because I used to manage an edible company and threw up all over myself. And then I'm like, oh, maybe that's not something you say before you're like offering things to people in the audience. But I mean, it was like memorable. And then that made me, everyone was like, oh, that girl, did you hear what she was saying? She's funny, whatever. So then I got a picture with Frenchie Cannoli outside from that event. And then someone from Marijuana Venture Magazine was like, hey, we want to do a little post about you. And then their editor was like, oh, she should be in the 40 under 40 based on my experiences. So ironically, that's how it worked. But
But I'm sure you've done more than that and throw all over yourself to be able to do that.
Before I gained that awesome story that has that cemented my friendships with people, just kidding. So before that, I managed the first dispensary in the city of Los Angeles for 5 years. Then I grew indoor and outdoor for 2 years. Then I did supply chain management, and then product development, R&D, and eventually operation management for one of the largest edible companies in California for 3 years. And I helped them start a recreational edible company in Washington State as well, setting up operations and supplies. And then I worked at a cannabis testing lab for a year as a project manager. And then I did management consulting for a year. And then what I do now is strategic advising and general BS detecting via teaching classes on terpenes and critical thinking, or helping entrepreneurs prevent them from getting screwed over like basically everyone does if they don't know better.
So you talked about terpenes and actually getting overdose or on terpenes. I mean, for most people, the terpenes is the flavor that you would find into into the plant or into the oil that is made. We talked about terpenes that is more citrus and more.
Yeah.
How is it possible to get an overdose of terpenes in?
So, like the stinkiest, smelliest, yummiest weed, cannabis, that's like maybe maximum 4% total weight of that bud would be the terpenes. That's like one terpene would be like 0.008% of a total percentage, because there's 60 to 100 terpenes in each cultivar or chemovar. So in that case, having pure terpenes, which just because it comes from a plant doesn't mean it's safe. Like terpenes are caustic chemicals. They are used for fracking and for cleaning. I know people that use limonene, which comes from citrus, to just clean their counters in the lab instead of getting like instead of a rubbing alcohol or something else like that. They use limonene as a fracking material instead of benzene because of how effective it is. So for people, we're learning so much. Like, it's new to the cannabis industry, but it's not new to the chemical world, because these are chemicals. Like, this is literally chemistry breaking these down. And when we're talking about getting pure terpenes, I mean, they're explosive, they're corrosive, they can be bad for your lungs. Like, you should not, if they touch your skin, they can do a lot of damage.
At a pure level, right?
Yeah, and same with essential oils as well. These are chemicals. It's good for people to remember that. And so what happened is we worked with a lab who got the math wrong on the formulation and got it wrong by like to a power of 10, wrong, too much. And this is a problem in labs, surprisingly enough, that like they're not even good at math. Like, they make some serious errors. And in this case, I got to experience it like firsthand, and I mean, it was insane. And that's actually when I realized like terpenes are legit. Like, this is crazy, because I didn't take it seriously, because I'm like, oh, it comes from cannabis. You know?
Yeah. It seemed light because it's the rest of the plant is so beneficial that you think that the terpenes themselves.
That's what people need to realize. Like, whole plant extracts, smoking the flower, that's the most nature intended ways. I mean, eating it as well. But when you start extraction and you're extracting and you're making much stronger dosages of THC, other cannabinoids, and terpenes or whatever, you're leaving the natural realm in a way, because naturally it's not that potent and it's not that concentrated. And I think that there's going to be an issue over time with us having too strong of products, you know, if that's not how nature makes it.
That's right. Oh, that's very interesting and very informative. And I think that this is something that everybody should know, right? It's not something that you just take lightly when you're talking about terpenes, and that's very good. So let's talk a little bit about the why. I mean, I think you've touched it, but so lightly. Where did you and when did you need to demystify what's happening in the industry and really become a warrior and leading your battle? And why does the industry need a bullshit detector like you?
Because the people that bullshit are good at it. and they're very charismatic, and they have money generally, because in this industry, it's not a meritocracy. It's not based on you're a good person, good things will happen. Like, no, this is capitalism, and it's got a lot of shady players that are just more well-funded than smaller businesses, and it makes for an unfair advantage or competitive advantage for those companies and investors and funds. And so I just feel like I've had crazy experiences in every sector, and I've seen a lot of corruption, from political pay to play, from the awards pay to play. It's just everything. I mean, the media, most of it is pay to play. So I just was like, oh my God, this is crazy. When I was at the lab, that's when I learned about, no, when I was at the edible company, that's when I learned about labs like being all over the place. So I would try and test them, because it's important when you're formulating edibles that you have the correct numbers to work with. So how do I know if I have a 67% THC extract?
Mm-hmm.
Then I plug those numbers in, and that will tell me a different amount to put in the edibles. When that math is wrong, you can overdose or underdose. And so it was like learning that, oh, the labs lie. And then learning that indica sativa is totally bullshit, and it's terpenes and cannabinoids. After 5 years of, I've always felt like I'm a truth teller. Like, come to me and I'll like find it out. And I thought it was indica sativa. So it was like,
What's the bullshit part about indica and sativa?
So
Because these are two different variety of the plant, right? And we often say,
there are three. There is indica, sativa, and ruderalis. And these are different species of cannabis. Right. So it's like if I was to ask you, what is the flavor, what does blue taste like? Blue is a visual thing. It's something you see. Like, it doesn't have a flavor. They're not the same thing. So to say that an indica gives you a sleepy feeling is saying blue tastes like raspberry, but that's not even possible. Like, indica is the physical characteristics and where it came from. It's taxonomical classifications. Whereas the effects that you get, that comes from its active chemicals, and the active chemicals that are found in trichomes are cannabinoids and terpenes. There's also more, but it's like it gets too confusing, and that's why in the end everything is kind of speculation or just straight up marketing, because we really are just learning like the beginning, because there's so many active chemicals in cannabis. So it's like, I've seen it when I would tell people indica is a body high, like they're like, oh, I want something for relaxation, and I'd be like, get this one, and that's what they would feel. And it's like sometimes I would make things up just to get people to leave, and that's what they would feel.
You think it's a placebo effect?
Oh, it's guaranteed a placebo effect, because unless you're a very knowledgeable person, you're going in there and you're hit with like a very expensive packaging and marketing, and the bud tenders are getting educated by the brands, and if the brands are indica, sativa, whatever, they're always implying that indica is the body high and sativa is the head high, and their excuses, but that's what everyone knows. Like, that's how people buy it, because terpenes, that's too confusing. But to me, it's like, it's so much cooler to get into different things, and instead of trying to sell people on the effect, sell them on the smell so that people can associate the smell with the effect. But that's so, like, I recognize that that's not reasonable until the brands start educating people correctly. Because as long as they're packaging sativa, indica, some brands will name their products like Calm 101 or, Creativity 308. Like, tell me that's not influencing you when you take it. We already know nutritional supplements, like at least 50% of them don't even have what they say on the bottles in them. Placebo effect is strong, and people don't know any better, so why wouldn't they believe it? That's marketing. So
So what
Yeah.
should the consumer know then when they walk into a dispensary and they want to buy something? What should they know that to make them more savvy and less dependent on education coming from the brands themselves, which have been transmitted to the bud tenders,
It's
obviously
all
with the,
about intentional use. So whenever you get something, like start noticing what the smell is. Because like for me, I know what is Blue Dream and what is not Blue Dream because of the smell. Also the way it looks and other characteristics, but you can call something sour diesel and people will know if they know what sour diesel is, if that's what it is or not. Like the smell is a chemical fingerprint essentially. And I tend to love like a more mentally like meaty like Master Kush, which I don't even know if this is around anymore, or Hindu Kush, or like Bubba Kush has, I don't know, like a peppery, I don't even know. It's so hard to explain it, but I know my nose is like, oh my god, like that's what I want. Like
and
I
does the
don't.
smell make a difference on the
That is
effect
the
that it will be?
difference. Is unless you actually pay attention to how it makes you feel, you really don't know how it's making you feel because you're just getting high. Which I'm not judging, like cool, whatever. But some people are trying to use it for a specific reason. So the only way we can trust what we're buying and what we're looking for is to start associating the different strains or chemovars that the smells that you like and start looking for ones with similar smells because the terpenes are aromatic molecules, but those are the ones that you're attracted to. And even if the lab lies about what the terpenes are in there, your nose knows what you're looking for. I know what OG Kush smells like when I'm looking for it. You know, I can be like, this is too citrusy or too piney or whatever. And it sounds weird, but I know as someone who was a bud tender for a long time that even if it looks pretty, it doesn't sell if it doesn't smell. People are like, I don't know, it's, you know, it doesn't, like cannabis is a very smell oriented thing. And I mean, our olfactory bulb is connected to both our memories and our emotional centers of our brain. So it's deeper than just like, oh, I like spicy or whatever. I mean, don't even question it. Just start paying attention to what smells good to you. The thing is when you get to a state like Washington where they like package everything, then you really want lab test results. And then to use your nose and like write it down. Keep track of what you try and what the flavor was because you're going to forget. Most people forget. You know, but if you really want to know, it's not that hard. And it's the same with sommeliers with wine. They can taste it and they know if that's what they're looking for.
Yes, and we see more and more sommeliers. We will have a sommelier in a few weeks on our podcast. So a sommelier of cannabis, actually. So that's going to be interesting. Now, you talked about corruption. You talked about fake lab results or faulty lab results.
Which there's so much.
And there's so much.
To that.
And that's why at My Jane, we really do all the research before we put any products that it's really a real lab and it's a real company and it's a real everything. And that's what we try to filter through so that consumers don't have to worry about it. But, you know, like when in your bullshit detecting, you obviously expose a lot of things. Is the industry ready to be exposed that much?
Yeah, totally. I mean, in the beginning, people heard me, but they didn't get it yet. And it's like, I can tell you not to do something, but you're probably going to do it anyways. And when you get burned, you'll be like, oh my God, okay, I get it now. Now I didn't know what she's talking about. I'm the same way. Like, all the lessons I've learned have been by making mistakes and like learning on my own, which is why I'm trying to save people from doing it. But I think, wait, what was the question again?
The question was about, you know, is the industry actually ready to be judged?
Oh yeah, okay. So back then, people
exposed.
People heard me, and that was good. People were like, "Oh, she's a BS detector, haha, what is that?" But then within a year or two, people started writing about the ways that they were getting screwed over and realizing like this is crazy, this is so rampant, especially when CBD isolate became like the Wild West with brokers and brokers on brokers. Everybody was selling CBD isolate or looking for CBD isolate. Like, it was insane. And it's because these industries are newly regulated or hardly regulated. And in that sense, there's tons of ways to like work around that. And the cannabis industry has never been legal. So you already have people that are used to skirting the law and doing things in their own way without business ideals or, you know, unethically. Like, it was an illegal thing. So it's not that different because it's still such a new industry. People are going to try to exploit it. And the more people that get exploited, the more they talk about it. And now I go on LinkedIn and I'm seeing there's several people pointing out the BS. Like, I had to take a year off. I got burnt out on it. But now I go on there and people, everyone I talk to, they love me. They're like, oh my God, girl, yes, like exactly what you said. Like, I've been through that. Or like, oh, you got to hear about this. Like, everyone is like, I have a story, like, let me tell you that. And I'm just like, let me speak for all of you who have financial obligations. I don't. And I'm tired of it. And like, as a woman with a small voice, like, I would be getting paid so much more if I was a man in the cannabis industry. I know that for a fact because there's a ton of men that are full of shit that make a ton of money off of people because they're good at bullshitting people. So yeah, I definitely think that the industry is not only ready, they're putting it together. Like, people are doing it more and more, and it's nice to feel validated.
And
Yeah.
what about the ones that you're denouncing? Do you think that this is going to be a problem for you?
I mean, I've never had I've never heard anything negative about me anytime. I've never been threatened by anyone ever.
That's good.
Like,
Good to hear.
I have a stellar reputation. Like, I don't fuck people over. So there's nothing to hold on me. And I got shit to lose, you know what I'm saying? So, and yeah, 15 years as a woman, I just feel like there's so many things that need to be talked about that aren't talked about. And it's important to talk about it, otherwise they don't get fixed.
So, what kind of service and education? Do you have a book? Do you have what's in your surrounding that you've put together as a service that will that can help businesses? Because I think that that's where is the biggest danger, is for businesses to do the wrong merger and acquisition, or
Yeah.
to, you know, like what kind of services do you offer to these businesses?
So I've worked with investors that are like, they have joined up with ArtView or other things, and they're looking to invest in cannabis. And I work as a shark of sorts. Like, I have managed operations in every sector of the industry, so I have a special understanding of where operational inefficiencies and weaknesses are. So, and also, I know the right questions to ask them to figure out if they're full of shit or if they even know what they're talking about, because everyone wants to start a cannabis business, which is the other thing that I do. I prefer to work with idea stage entrepreneurs, investors, businesses, ancillary businesses, and do a viability analysis of sorts, just to make sure that people have a viable idea in the first place, because getting cancer and then getting your life saved by cannabis is not a reason to start a cannabis business. Like, I hear you, I understand, but like, get a job at a cannabis business first. Like, I help people come up with creative solutions. And if you have a viable idea and everything I tell you about, you're like, I got this, like, let's do this, whatever, then I pass you on to trusted consultants and lawyers, etc. But I feel like when I talk to people that have already started operating, they're too far in financially, that they aren't going to listen, or they're not going to want to spend the amount of money they need to fix themselves. And classes.
That's really good, and I think that it's very important that someone like you can help those businesses. We're almost out of time, so before we finish, let's do a little fast round of questions.
Sure.
What one thing are you going to do for your own wellness today?
I'm going to go for a walk in my neighborhood. It's beautiful.
That's excellent. Excellent answer. Your favorite quote?
Accurate observation is commonly referred to as cynicism by those who haven't got any. That's George Bernard Shaw. I bought the domain The Cynical Stoner back in 2008, and it's still a very accurate description.
That's a really good one. Favorite book or website?
My favorite book is The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein that came out after 9/11 that basically shows how there are think tanks and the government that plan for disasters and use these disasters as a way to force change in policy while we're all reeling from it, and to start paying attention to what's going on besides what you're seeing in the news.
Kristen, thank you so much for being with us today. It was a real pleasure again to see you, and hope to see you now like on a regular show somewhere. I mean, it really should be. And help to help the community. This is just really, really a great mission that you have. So I remind everybody that you can listen to our podcast on the Podbean, Apple Podcast, on our website. It's going to be posted as well, and subscribe to never miss a My Jane, My Story. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to My Jane, My Story. If you want to learn more, you can join the My Jane community at myjane.com. Get instant access to our Facebook group, Facebook community, educational resources, and updates on My Jane products and special events. And for personal attention right now, you can also pick up the phone and call 833-MY-JANE2. That's MYJANE2. And speak to your own wellness concierge, because it's time to own your wellness. Be well.